Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, here with my friend and co-author, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And this is a program that we do every Thursday from 6 to about 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's a program that grew out of the book that we wrote and was published a few years back called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And some exciting news, it is now available as an audio book, and you can get it on Apple Books and Spotify and other platforms. And we will post a link in the description starting the next episode, but I've already posted it on the website, so you can, not the website, I'm sorry, on Facebook, so you can see it there. And we would greatly appreciate if you do listen to the book, if you would leave it a 5-star review, because it'll help other people to get to it. And
it is a good book.
The publisher told me to say that. I'll say that. But I might have said it anyway, actually. And unfortunately, you'll have to listen to my voice for the whole book.
Not a long time it took. I know, right?
Yeah. So, what we do most of the time on our program here is we read letters from people who send us the stories of their animal companions passing and how they're doing in the aftermath. And so if you'd like to write to us, and we hope that may be something that you would choose to do, you can reach me at kenddv at gmail and Nancy at nancysaxtonlopez@gmail.com. There are ways that you can support the program, and they are listed in the description. Also, we want you to know that I facilitate a pet loss support group through a relationship with Dakin Humane Society, which is based in Springfield. It's a wonderful organization. I do a Zoom support meeting every second Tuesday of the month from 6 p.m. Eastern till 7:30 p.m. There's an RSVP link in the description that's attached to this program, and you don't pay anything to join that. It's free for you to join. And finally, we'd like to ask you to please subscribe here to the Pet Loss Companion podcast if you haven't already, and leave a like, leave a heart, leave a comment. All of these things help others to learn that the program may be helpful for them. It affects the algorithm on YouTube in that way. And we also would like to remind you that we have an affiliation with a company called Bereave, which makes these really wonderfully crafted memorial plaques, and they are indeed very well put together. You have the image of your beloved animal companion, whatever text you'd like. They're the kind of thing that you would put in a memorial garden or a place where you keep mementos inside the house. We'd also like to let you know this evening that our friend Crystal Susie is having a special support group this Sunday
at noon, I believe.
You can learn more about it. It's at noon, right, Nancy?
Yeah, noon.
You can learn more about it at getcrystalclear.com. That's get, GETCRYSTALCLEAR.com. Her information is linked to the description of our program as well. But she's doing a special
memorial group, right?
Candle lighting and reading to commemorate All Souls Day, which is the day after what we typically call Halloween or Samhain, depending on what your spiritual background may be or orientation. And so I think that's it. Nancy, do you want to get us started?
Yeah. Also, I think October 27th, if I'm not mistaken, or was it 27th was the day of the dead for animals.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So
good to know.
Past, but just good to know. Okay, so we have 2 stories tonight. I'm going to read Sophie and Minou's, and Ken is going to read I'm blanking.
Karla
and Max.
Yep.
Right. But they're both wonderful stories, very heartwarming but heartbreaking. And I will start with Sophie and Minou's. Dear Ken and Nancy, I miss my 11-year-old cat, Minou, all the time. I keep on thinking she is going to walk into the room and jump on my lap. This loss has hit me so hard, and I think that is linked in part to how guilty I feel about not being as available for her in the last year as I used to. She was asking for cuddles and contact, and I didn't have the time or thought I didn't. And now I regret it so much. Those last weeks when I was rushing around doing do-it-yourself things, she had nowhere to rest and was suffering, and I didn't see it. I don't know how I'll forgive myself. She was a beautiful and loyal cat. Her entering my life made me immediately into a crazy cat lady and taking her care and safety so seriously. She was vulnerable, and I was in charge of keeping her safe. When she was a kitten, she would play hide and seek and jump on me when I entered a room to play. We slept in my bed every night in those years, her nuzzled against my body. She would sit on my lap for my first morning wee and would pop her head over the bathtub when I would wash my hair, trying a paw in, but never jumping in. She was also the sassiest thing I've ever met, letting you know when she had had enough cuddles by putting her paw on your hand and making eye contact and saying, "Stop now," followed by a sigh. Burying poos in the litter tray was not something she did. She was very smart, too, always knowing when I was upset, when I was going to leave, and when I would be needing her. My sick or hungover days were her favorite. It meant nonstop cuddle time. Minou wasn't happy with the arrival of a male kitten when she was 18 months, but her and Ron did have many cuddles and plays over the years. They were like two different sides of my personality. Minou with her sass and assurance, and Ron with his shyness and people-pleasing side. When I came back from the hospital with my newborn, they were both there, sat calmly on the floor near us while I fed the baby. She was a tough cat on Ron, sometimes liking him, sometimes not, and not wanting to share me. I think that was my fault for not introducing them properly. We moved homes multiple times during the 11 years that you were with me, as well as during my years as a single cat mom. I insisted on taking you on trips when you were young, even though I realized you might have been better at home. The last few days together went so slowly and so fast at the same time. On the Friday, you drank a lot of water and immediately peed on my partner. Before that, I started noticing that you'd slowed down and spent most of the day sitting on a chair under the kitchen table. But you were still going outside, so I thought maybe you were slowing down because of age. But that Friday morning made me realize you were really unwell. I called the vet and got an appointment for the following morning, the earliest I could get. We got you in, and the vet said you looked very dehydrated and bloated. You weighed only 2 kilograms, right? I think that's what it is, whereas you were usually at 3.5. How did I not notice? The vet said to put you under fluids until the evening and antibiotics as well as take blood tests. From the moment I got home without you, I started researching chronic kidney disease in cats, which the vet suspected. I couldn't believe how common it was in older cats, and the more I read, the more I saw that your symptoms were extreme ones, with inability to hold urine and increased drinking. I read a lot of Reddit feeds on renal cats, learning about creatine levels,
Urea.
Thank you. Levels, stages of disease, at-home sub-Q drips, renal diets, and the various medications that might make you live a little longer with an okay quality of life. When I called the practice in the evening, the receptionist said you were getting discharged. I asked if that meant you were better, and she said normally, yes. But when I spoke to the vet, she said you were very unwell and she suspected kidney disease. She suggested I take you to the out-of-hours vet hospital for the weekend, which I did. They were also worried and thought you might also have pancreatic problems based on a physical exam, and I had to leave you there overnight. When I got home, I felt so lonely and sad to be leaving you behind at the hospital without me there to comfort you. I called several times the following day, and they said your creatine levels had gone down a bit and the dehydration had improved. I went in around 6 p.m. to speak to the vet and see you. You seemed good, walking around the room, eating and peeing. Your tail was up and you gave me a wink. But the vet said your creatine levels were still very high, and that unless they came down significantly within the next 24 hours, which would show an acute rather than a chronic disease, You were most likely going to die within days or weeks. I asked about a renal diet, but she just said to give you anything that you might eat, and this made me realize how poor the prognosis was. I took you home, and we spent the night together in the spare room. You slept on the bed with me cuddling you. You ate well, drank milk, had a choice of 3 wet food plates, peed and pooped. I thought maybe you were getting better. Took you to the vet's on Monday lunchtime to check the bloods again. The physical evaluation showed you seemed okay, but weak. We waited all afternoon for the results. You sat on my lap the whole time and didn't really move. I put lasagna and profiteroles in front of you, and you didn't react. This was very unusual. I cried and cried, wondering what I should do, whether euthanasia would be the best option to not have you suffer. The vet called around 4:30 p.m. and said your creatine levels were really high, over 900, when 140 are normal levels, and your urea levels were beyond what the machine could measure. He suspected no renal function was left and that you were likely to get very unwell very quickly. He said he could put you back on fluids and see if that helped, but he wasn't confident. I thought that I couldn't put you through that and have you at the vet's in a cage for what might be your last few hours or days. I also knew you were a proud and fastidious cat when it came to grooming, and you would hate the idea of sitting in your urine or not controlling where or when you peed. I asked them for details of the at-home euthanasia service. They said they could come at 6 p.m. that evening. I panicked and was terrified he would start to suffer more and be in pain. I asked everyone in the house to leave, and me and you spent those last moments together cuddling, and me telling you how much I loved you and how much I regretted not seeing you get so unwell and not being there for you. You didn't even flinch with the first needle prick the vet did to give you the sedative, and just looked at me with your big, beautiful smile and eyes while I was pulling my eyes out. You passed away so fast and just froze in time, looking so alive. I held you for the next hour, crying and enjoying this last cuddle while you were still warm and soft. We thought that when you lost weight over the last year, it was because you were going out more in the new garden and being more active. The guilt I feel in not being there for you in the last year will never leave me. A toddler, a new home with a lot of renovation to do, a full-time job. I took it for granted that you'd be there forever. All my friends reassure me that I was an amazing cat mom, but that doesn't change how I'm feeling and knowing that I wasn't there for you enough at the end. I'm expecting a new baby in a few months, and you will be there by my side, bearing and the crying like you and Ron did with the first baby. What should be a happy upcoming moment doesn't feel like it right now. I'm not hungry. I don't want to make plans or have any enjoyment. It's been almost 7 days since you died. I cried less today, but feel more numb and low, probably realizing that this is it now. My partner never had pets and doesn't understand what I'm going through, asking me to do chores and look after our daughter when I just want to be alone and cry. I'm now only telling friends who I know will understand my grief, as I've noticed many people don't realize what it feels like. I discovered your podcast the day after Minou died, and it has been a lifeline, hearing all the stories from other people who have also lost their pets. Thank you so much for what you were doing in providing a space for people to express their grief, but also for you to provide support. Although I've listened to many episodes in the last week, I haven't heard of one from someone who feels as guilty as I do, having let my cat down, and I'm struggling to know how I will atone for that. Writing this letter has been helpful. In case you were able to provide any guidance, I would find that hugely helpful too. But I also am aware how in demand your advice is, so I have no expectations. Well, Sophie,
Well,
we are here for you, dear.
so it's interesting to me that she said that she hasn't heard a story where
Yeah,
people are sharing as much guilt because we hear it so much.
all the
It's
time.
so common, the depth of guilt that people feel. And very much like Sophie, and I've said this a lot, you don't have any reason to feel guilty, or
No,
kind of
no.
jokingly say you don't have any right to feel guilty because you just did everything you possibly could. We're so attentive, we're so caring, and with all the other stuff going on, that's the way
Yeah,
life is. That's just the
yeah,
way
that's
life
what
is for all of us.
happens.
There's always a lot going on, and when you have a toddler and she's pregnant now, and I, she's renovating a house, and
She's got a
also the
lot going
fact,
on.
what I'm surprised by is that she was able to pick up as much as she did on what was going on
And what was going
with
on and
Minou,
how she
because
did, right?
yeah,
She was
and
back
she
and
was
forth.
right on
Yeah,
top of it, taking her to
right,
the vet,
right.
and being with her and hearing making sure she got all the information, and clearly deciding
Was
when
the
the
right
balance
time.
it made yeah when it made
Yeah,
sense to end her suffering. So
yeah.
and again, as she said, a lot of her friends are saying you
You
have
were the
nothing to feel guilty about. You're the
best
best
mom.
cat, but and it doesn't change the way people feel to hear that, because there is so much power behind the emotions
Yeah,
of guilt that they're not going to be dislodged by a little bit of logic. It's not going to
no,
work, but it does help generally as a reference point over a bit of time. Like I'll bet there's nobody in her life is saying, yeah, you really were slacking off there.
no.
I can't
I don't think
imagine that.
so.
There's no way that's happening. And so that's important. The only person who's saying that is her.
Yeah,
That's the only
yes, it's
person who's
Sophie.
saying that is she's saying that to herself, which is so typical and so much. We torture ourselves when we lose our beloved animal family member. We
Yeah.
tend to we were like
We
tearing at
torture.
ourselves.
Yes, we
Why
torture
didn't I
ourselves.
see it? Why didn't I catch? And the other thing you have to really keep in mind is animals, and we've said this a lot of times too. Animals don't show it until they really have to.
No, then it's almost over.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's almost over by the
yeah,
time you're going to see anything that looks symptomatic. They're close to the end often, or
yeah,
they're very, very ill.
right,
And that's just the nature of being a small animal that is often preyed upon by
right.
others. And so you can't look back with 2020 hindsight and say, "Oh, that's when I should have seen it," because
Yeah.
because probably there were many, many
Probably you
times.
weren't going to be able to see it.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably many times in their lives when they were a little under the weather, and
Hmm.
you didn't really notice it very much, and it didn't really matter that much because they got to feeling better. But now, when that escalates in this way, we look back and say, "Oh, I should have known she was dying." You
No,
probably couldn't have imagined that
no,
with just what you saw in the
right.
very beginning. And when you saw it, you took her to the vet. That's
Yeah,
what you do. That's the best you can do. So
exactly.
I hope she's able to find
Yeah.
some peace.
And
And
also to yes, to work through the grief or the guilt that she doesn't really need, but yes, is there, and we always have it
yeah, and
in
there's yeah,
some
yeah,
facsimile.
yep. It
Because
most people
especially
have it. Yeah,
especially the ones that are the best pet parents, like all the people
absolutely.
that are
It's
right into us,
the
right?
most
Because
conscientious
yeah,
people are most likely to
to
feel,
have guilt.
because we just feel so responsible for everything, and
Hmm.
then we don't have we can't control the
No,
escalation of a terminal
no,
illness and the rapid collapse of the
no.
body's systems that it brings about. We just can't. So, but we have to try to be okay with that for ourselves, and not like another thing about guilt is that to me, I feel like sometimes the guilt helps us feel a little bit less out of control, because if we feel like we did something wrong,
Oh yeah,
then the fact is, in the way that we have processed this emotionally, at least we coulda shoulda been able to do something, whereas in fact probably there was nothing that we could have
no.
done that would have made it
Mm-mm.
different. And that feeling of being out of control is sometimes even more
Right.
difficult. The raw anxiety of that is so powerful.
There was one
So
other thing with Sophie too, or a lot of our stories where, especially with the euthanasia, that that a lot of times pet parents think that that their companion is having thoughts, mean, oh, I'm going to die, or I'm really scared, or whatever that is. I talked to somebody about this today, and I said, no, they're not like that. They can't emotionally, work that in how they are, what they're doing at that time. Death for them is a process. It's a physical process, and they're not thinking, oh my God, I'm dying, and that's not how they
They're more
are.
in the moment in general than
Right.
that. They're feeling what they're feeling, and I mean,
And
animals tend to
it's
have a kind of acceptance and equanimity
exactly, that's
that
exactly right.
that because they're not doing a lot of there's not a lot of mind games going on.
No, that's right. But they may be reacting to their pet parents'
Yeah,
emotion,
yeah,
but there's no cognizance of what that means or what is going on. So I hope that helps people a little bit.
yeah. So we want to thank
Sophie.
Sophie very much for sharing this story, and we'll move on to Karla's story. So Karla writes, "Hi Ken, I came across your podcast tonight while grieving my pup Max. I really want to share my feelings with someone and figured I would write to you and Nancy. I apologize for rambling and for typos. I couldn't really read through this to edit. You can share, but I'd appreciate if you keep the personalized details out." And so she told us how to do that, and so we've kept the personal details out. Some background: Max is a miniature schnauzer. I adopted him in the Midwest in 2016 when he was about 5 years old. We became inseparable, doing absolutely everything together: vacations, shopping trips, you name it. His life changed a lot in 2020 when I moved back to my hometown down south and had a baby. I felt guilty about this quite a bit because with a new baby, Max's role changed a lot. No more sleeping on the bed or monopolizing my attention, for example. I didn't realize these changes would happen, and I didn't do much to prepare Max, but he was still my bestest boy. We would still take him with us as much as possible on outings, and I started to work from home so we would keep each other company all day. In 2023, we moved to the Northeast for a year. While there, Max suffered a slipped disc episode that really changed his quality of life. He was never able to walk normally again, and I would use a stroller to take him around. His health also began deteriorating after that. He developed heart, liver, and thyroid issues, needing daily pain medication, and his rehab therapist thought he was developing dementia. Recently, he started losing weight, and his mobility became almost zero. All this to say, we had begun considering having end of life conversations as we would think about his quality of life. But other than talking about it, we had not actually had any conversations. I couldn't bring myself to actually talk about it. In the last couple of months, we moved back to my parents' house. We purchased a home that is getting some renovations and moved here while that happens. We also just had another baby. She's 3 weeks old. Congratulations, by the way. I can't carry Max right now, recovering from surgery, which he gets which he needs to get around. So my family has been very helpful in making sure he's fed and can use the facilities, but the love and cuddles that he used to get from me have been quite limited and would have continued to be limited until about 6 to 8 weeks postpartum. I had been feeling horrible about this, but hoped it would be temporary and we would get back to our routine soon. Max really is bonded to me, so he wouldn't really search out others for love and companionship, and he very much feels when my attentions are not around. Yesterday, I did something horrible. It was daytime, and I took Max to my parents' backyard to relieve himself. I've been able to carry a bit more weight and have been trying to take him out more since he has had accidents inside now. I honestly don't even remember taking him out, but my son does. He was outside about 30 minutes before I realized he wasn't around. We usually take him out and leave him out a few minutes to enjoy the grass, though we stay with him or at least check on him often. He doesn't walk much and usually doesn't leave the grassy area because he can't. However, my parents have a pool, and when Max was more mobile, he fell in once at night. I was not really worried about that happening during the day, particularly given his mobility, but we still were cautious about it. When I noticed Max wasn't around, we rushed outside. It was our worst nightmare. Max had fallen in the pool and was lying at the bottom. My sister jumped in while I yelled, holding my baby. I dropped her in a carrier and rushed to join my sister, giving CPR. Max was limp. We drove to a vet. There's one on the corner of our house. But it was too late. My baby boy's last minutes were agony, a horrible, drowning death alone, feeling abandoned and desperate, and all because I couldn't even remember my last moments with him, which were to discard him outside. Max was older, probably 14 or 15, and with lots of health issues. Instead of loving him and giving him peace during his last moments, I just forgot him. A completely preventable death caused by the one person who should have loved him and protected him above all others. I'm struggling so much with my choices and don't know what to do, as I can never give him back the dignity of his last moments and make him feel loved like he should have been. This was completely my fault, and it will always be completely my fault. I'm sure one day it may hurt less, but that my carelessness did this, that I was lazy enough to cause someone's death, is something that I don't know if I can ever get over. My poor baby boy, I'm so sorry, and I love you so much. I hope you're at peace now more than anything, and that your body is healed and resting comfortably. I love you, and I'm so, so sorry. Thank you for letting me share, Karla.
Boy, tough. Really
Really
sad
tough
and really
story.
tough. Yeah.
And she's so disparaging
Of
of
course she
herself.
would be, right?
And
Oh my goodness. But she has to know that um, Max isn't holding her in judgment. He's not, he doesn't hold any malice. He's not angry at her. He is just has in spirit, with her,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I know that she feels so incredibly bad, but, and that's this guilt, right? But he, right? Didn't we have one like this?
oh,
That
we've had a whole bunch of
whole,
them like
right?
this. Yeah,
And I
yeah,
remember that they said,
yeah,
oh, he can't walk around very well, right?
yeah,
And then found out that they had gotten into the pool.
yeah.
Um,
And it's so important for her to recognize that it's just an accident.
yeah, that's
I
it.
mean, it's just to keep telling herself it's an
Yeah,
accident. It's a moment of inattention that happens. It's probably happened many, many, many times. It happens with our animal companions. It happens with our kids. It
right.
happens with our elders. And usually, there's no consequence because we can't be riveted. We can't
Every
have our
second of
attention
every
riveted
day
every
with
second. We
right.
can't do it. It doesn't, that's not life. There's a lot of stuff going on.
No, right.
And so this is very tragic. It's very
Yeah, sad.
unfortunate, but she didn't intend for it to happen. She
No,
would never intend. And it's
of course.
really important that she keeps reminding herself of that she practices self forgiveness. This kind of thing that I think about when I think about this kind of story is how would you respond to a loved one who told you that this was their story? If if Karla was listening to a dear friend or a family member who told them that this happened to them, would she judge them? Would she think they were a horrible person? Would she feel like they should suffer guilt for the rest of their lives?
I
I don't
can't
think so.
imagine.
I don't
No, I
think
think that
so.
they would say, "Oh, this is so sad," and
So
"Oh, we're so
sad, so
sad, sorry."
sorry.
But these things can
These
happen.
happen. I mean, we don't
They're
we
not
don't want to
meant to be,
recap
but
all the ways that some
yeah,
kind of accident that
I know.
that we are a part of results in the death of an animal
Hmm.
companion. It happens with major appliances. It happens with automobiles.
Right.
It happens with plastic bags.
Yep.
It
D-
happens with containers.
Yep.
It's with so many stories. And it happens in the back seats of cars. And
It happens in streams.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
It happens near railroads. I mean,
Uh,
so you didn't, Karla, you did
No, you would
not
never want
intend
him
for
to
this. You
die like
loved
that.
Max. You
Yeah.
took great care of Max, and
He was your son.
you would never have expected
Mm-mm.
that he would wander and fall in the
No.
pool. It just wasn't the way he moved. He didn't move very much.
Right.
And so try to be gentle with yourself and
Yeah.
forgiving. And thank you for sharing. Every time a
Yeah,
person
because,
shares
yeah.
a story like this, it helps detoxify the reality that this happens for other people who undoubtedly will listen to this and say,
Oh,
I did something similar. And I
yeah.
feel a little less alone as a result
Yeah.
of hearing Karla's story.
We appreciate that, for our audience, because again, unfortunately, accidents happen. But
Things happen, but
Max is with
yeah,
you,
yep, yep.
and he will always be with you, Karla.
So we want to
Yeah.
thank Karla and Sophie, and we'll remind you once again, if the program is helpful, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, leave a comment. All of those are helpful in terms of getting the program in front of other people who may benefit.
Yeah.
And Nancy, I'll look forward to talking with you next
Well,
time.
next week.
Take
Please
care.
take care, everyone.
Bye bye.